want to turn towards the second segment. Do you want to cover the AOC video real quick? I think it would
Yes, dude,
fit
let's do
with
that. I didn't even
with.
watch it till like a what like I didn't watch it. Then I saw
Thank you.
RBN
Now,
covering it, and I was like, okay, I got to see this actual video. And then I was like, whoa,
Yeah, I
it's
saw
so
RBN's
fake.
coverage of it. And
It's
yeah,
it's
yeah,
just like so
RBN and
cringe.
the
It's
reason.
so fake.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I think that, but it's telling of the larger state of the left. And if you compare it with some of the comments that AOC said early on, when before she got elected, or in the first few days after she got elected, it's telling of this sort of explicit shift towards identity politics that these quote unquote progressives within the Democratic Party have taken. So um, I think it's
Absolutely.
very much symbolic of larger trends on the left that divorce themselves from working class politics and class struggle, and end up embarking in a form of class politics that's a class politics of the PMC and of stratas of the U.S. Society that are very much in line with the looting of empire.
Yeah, let's watch the video in case people haven't seen it. I'm sure a lot of you have already, but this is AOC after Ilhan Omar was removed from some foreign policy committee in Congress for supposed anti-Semitic remarks, which we all know is, just her standing up to Israel and the Israeli apartheid state that's been murdering Palestinians and forcing them out of their homes for years, forced 75% of the Palestinian people into refugee status.
It
But
was the Foreign Affairs Committee, by the way.
Foreign Affairs Committee. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you.
thank you. Now, as also as a fellow New Yorker, I think one of the things that we should talk about here is also one of the disgusting legacies after 9/11 has been the targeting and racism against Muslim Americans throughout the United States of America. And this is an extension of that legacy. Consistency, there is nothing consistent with the Republican Party's continued attack except for the racism and incitement of violence against women of color in this body. I had a member of the Republican caucus threaten my life, and you all and the Republican caucus rewarded him with one of the most prestigious committee assignments in this Congress. Don't tell me this is about consistency. Don't tell me that this is about a condemnation of anti-Semitic remarks when you have a member of the Republican caucus who has talked about Jewish space lasers and an entire amount of tropes, and also elevated her to some of the highest committee assignments in this body. This is about targeting women of color in the United States of America. Don't tell me, because I didn't get a single apology when my life was threatened. Thank you.
I can barely do it. Although I'll let you go ahead. I just want to say real quick, because I brought it up before I played the video. The reason they're targeting Ilhan Omar is because she's critical of Israel, because she's critical of the Israeli apartheid state, right? Islam, she has been targeted for being a Muslim woman plenty of times, right? But last time she was primaried by the Republican Party, she ran against another woman of color who happened to be a Republican, right? So in this case, that is not why she is being targeted, right? Because of her religion or the color of her skin or whatever. It's because of her politics, because of her anti-imperialist, socialist position on that issue against the Israeli apartheid state that gets $3 billion plus a year from the U.S. military-industrial complex.
Right. It's important to mention that it's kind of strange because they're saying that they kicked her out because she's a Muslim woman of color, but the person that the Republicans had put forward was a Somali woman of color. So, this logic of identity politics, it's so strange and circular and self-defeating, because in a way the accusations against Ilham Omar, although a form of class warfare against some genuinely anti-imperialist positions that she held, and has as of late, from what I've seen, somewhat backstep. But instead of just coming out and saying the obvious, which is that we want to defend Israel as a neocolonial outpost in the Middle East, they can't say that. So they themselves reduce these attacks to identity politics and go on the same form of attacks that were waged against Jeremy Corbyn in the Labour Party, accusations of anti-Semitism. And instead of moving beyond identity politics and using this large platform that she's given here to talk about the Palestinian struggle, to talk about the Israeli apartheid state, and to defend the statements that Ilham Omar made, instead of doing that, she stays within the field of identity politics and reduces the attacks on Ilham Omar to her identity, and that's very sad because it ends up reducing argumentation to the identity of the person. You can't critique someone for the substance of their arguments without them retaliating and saying that no, your real reason for critiquing me is my skin color or my religion or my sex or something like that. And that's just not how the left has rolled in the past. When it's genuine racism, you call it out and you criticize it. But the reality here is that it's not racism on the part of the GOP, which is it is racist, but the DNC is also racist. But it's not racism that's at stake here. It's the position that Israel holds as a neocolonial imperialist outpost of the U.S., which is at stake. So it's
Yeah, and it's this style. I mean, you said it's this speech is telling of trends within the Democratic Party and of the pseudo left. I mean, one of those things is that it's just total style over substance, and the style kind of made me cringe too. But there's a lot of hand motions. There's a lot of jumping around. It almost looks like she's mimicking like a Baptist preacher,
right.
like she's trying to do her best MLK impression. When the speech is, misses the main substance, the main substantive point that she should make, which is that Ilhan Omar is being kicked out of a position of power when it comes to foreign policy because she's critical of Israel, who the UN, has ruled as an apartheid state at this point. So it's undeniable. But instead of talking about that, it's the identity politics combined with a lot of gyrating and jumping around. And the only real substantive point that she makes is attacking the Republicans, saying, how can you talk about, anti-Semitism when you have Marjorie Taylor Greene talking about Jewish space lasers, which is a good point. But that's another trend in the Democratic Party. The only time they have a good point is when they're criticizing the Republicans, when they're talking about how bad the Republicans are. And it's like, we know that they're bad, but you have to be better. You have to offer an alternative. If you have the same policies as the Republicans and fight for the same things as them, then you're no better than them.
Right, especially these people that were supposedly elected to be progressives and challengers of the center and the mainstream form of politics within the Democratic Party. And I think if anything has shown that that's not the case, is this recent vote on prohibiting the rail strike, which of course AOC voted in favor of. And also remember that she voted. She didn't vote against the bill that wanted to send $3 billion to Israel to build the Iron Dome. So again, nothing strange here. Her voting shows that while she might pretend to be an ally of the Palestinian struggle, when it really counts, she's not there for Palestinian people or for working class people in the U.S. or really for any of the progressive forces that she claims to represent through her appeals to her personal identity and the identity of those around her.
Absolutely. It's crazy how quickly her grift evolved into liberalism. Like, especially, I mean, now I guess I would expect that, but back then I donated to her campaign. When she got elected, I told all my friends, this is a big deal. This is America moving in a more compassionate, empathetic direction with the politics that makes more sense. And I was just amazed when Forced the Vote happened, when she got exposed on that level, how quickly she was trying to ally with Nancy Pelosi. And it's like, what are you doing? No, not Nancy Pelosi. Like anybody who allies with Nancy Pelosi is a neoliberal and is not a friend of the working class. Is that not obvious? Was that not what you campaigned on? But she cozied right up to those establishment Democrats, and then, quickly her identity politics became a way to criticize or slap down any critique from the left. Any critique about her foreign policy, her support for imperialism, things like this. She's perfectly happy to weaponize identity politics to shut those critiques down. It's the same thing liberal Democrats all do. And she's doing the same thing social democrats do, or that they have done historically, in sending a bunch of arms and weapons to Nazis in Ukraine, which is allying with the fascists at times of capitalist crises rather than the working class. So yeah, I guess we shouldn't be surprised if we look historically, but for those of us who came to the left through the Bernie movement and had real hope for AOC, it's been pretty shocking to watch. But a great example, and learn lessons from this, right? If you put your faith in AOC and now you see what she's become, learn that lesson. Don't let it happen again, right? Don't put all your eggs in the electoral basket anymore. That's what Norman Finkelstein was saying when he was talking about this AOC speech with Brianna Joy Gray on the Bad Faith podcast. We need to learn lessons from this. And then you have people like the Majority Report, Sam Cedar, and the Young Turks, and a lot of these more neoliberal outlets, or social democratic center left outlets, whatever you want to call them, who just excuse everything the squad does, and act as apologists for everything they do, because they're supposed to be the left. And you can't do that if you want to have a successful movement, right? You have to have a real materialist analysis, understand they're not doing anything for the class struggle or for the anti-imperialist struggle. And what lessons do we learn from that moving forward? We learn that we need revolutionary socialism, not a bunch of social democratic politicians with a lot of rhetoric, but not a lot of fight.
Right, and it's not like participating in elections is like unimportant. We have a population that pretty much treats elections as sports, and that's a very incorrect way to treat it. But nonetheless, there's a heavy emphasis on election. It's in part, an important part of the identity of a big chunk of Americans. That's not to say that overwhelmingly the vast majority of Americans are not as tuned into politics as the mainstream media thinks they are, but it's important to participate in electoral politics. But to what extent is it beneficial to participate in a party that is a bourgeois imperialist party that one can make the argument that is as fascistic, if not even more, than the Republican Party? And to what extent is participating in what they consider to be socialist politics in those conditions beneficial? Because if you recognize that you're dealing with a state structure that's intended to defend the interests of the capitalist class, and that you still have to participate in elections, you should participate in elections so that you can be open to criticizing all parts of the ruling class and the policies that they take, and connect, everything that's going on to everything else, and connect it to the fact that these are all systemically rooted. And you can't do that when you take this path within the Democratic Party. So if they genuinely are interested in socialist politics, there has to be a way to approach things from a third party approach that actually gives you the freedom to criticize. Because one of the main things that apologists of AOC and of this progressive wing still continue to say is that they can at least win some things within the Democratic Party. But it's what things? They never point to concrete examples. What things have they actually won? What things have they actually fought for? What things have they actually had the balls to stand there and criticize about their own party? They're very harsh about this other party, but they got into those positions through grassroots, somewhat progressive movements that felt like they were going against the stream of U.S. You know, politics. That's just, you know, that ends up having the Democrats and the Republicans function as two sides of the same coin. So what have they concretely done for the movement for socialism? And, you know, the clear response has been nothing. So